Hey guys, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Keely Ogden, I'm a writer, and I am the Vampire Girl. We are continuing our Black History Month celebration with a film that has shocked me in more ways than one. It's time for Vampyre in Brooklyn. Vampyre in Brooklyn was released in 1995 and is directed by horror legend and one of my favorite directors, Wes Craven. This movie is produced by and stars comedy legend Eddie Murphy. It also stars Angela Bassett, Alan Payne, and Kadeem Hardison. Vampyre in Brooklyn came about when Eddie Murphy decided that he wanted to set aside his comedic mantle and take up a little more serious and a little more frightening of a project. Murphy wanted to play the villain. He wanted to be scary. He wanted to be sexy. When Wes Craven was brought in to direct, he and Murphy butted heads on what exactly the tone of the story should be. Murphy really wanted to lean away from his comedic origins and focus straightly on horror. However, Wes Craven was adamant that you needed comedic moments and a little bit of levity in order to make the scarier moments hit harder. Vampyre in Brooklyn took these two worlds and blended them together into something that is riotously enjoyable. Upon release, Vampyre in Brooklyn was a critical and financial flop. It still has a depressingly low Rotten Tomatoes score. What was it about this movie that had everybody shaking their heads? Is its bad reputation deserved? First, let's talk plot. Maximilian is the last of a dying race. The only hope that he has for the continuation of his peoples is a half-vampire that he has tracked to Brooklyn, New York. If he does not find this woman and complete her transformation into a full vampire, then the legacy of the vampire dies with him. There's just one problem. The woman, a detective named Rita Vedder, has no idea what is lying dormant inside of her. I was really surprised by this movie. I always approach comedy horror with trepidation and a 10-foot pole and ready to just cringe and moan through the entire film. So when I saw that a comedy legend was at the helm of this movie, I was skeptical. I mean, this is the Eddie Murphy I grew up with. I was not expecting him to be able to pull off a terrifying and romantic figure. But let me tell you what, he did it. Max enters this film with such style and charisma that I was immediately smitten. He has this calm and almost mocking way of talking to people that he sees as beneath him. He has no time and no patience for these humans who are just obstacles in his way of finding Rita. However, whenever he's addressing Rita herself, it becomes this confident, melodious, enchanting dialogue. He knows exactly what to say to get her to do what he wants. Rita is also a really amazing character. She is played by the effervescent Angela Bassett. Rita is a troubled woman, but she has to put on this strong facade because of the environment that she works in. She is a detective in Brooklyn, and we've seen Law and Order, we've seen all the cop shows. Detectives throughout New York have it rough. Angela also comes with a lot of baggage in her personal life, having just recently lost her mother, who had been institutionalized. Rita, along with many children of mentally ill parents, carries this fear with her of devolving into what her mother was. Bassett also brings these softer moments to Rita where she gets comfortable and she feels safe. And when those moments are ripped away from her, we see the hurt and the betrayal and the doors in her starting to close. Alan Payne plays Rita's partner, Justice. He is her partner in the department, and they're newer partners, but it feels like they have been working together forever. Payne and Bassett have amazing on-screen chemistry. I fell in love with their relationship as soon as they were on screen. That was something this movie did to me a lot. It immediately drew me in. It immediately made me care about the characters, and it immediately made me want to sink my teeth into the action. I was cheering for Rita and Justice through the entire movie, and I'm not gonna say what happened with that until my analysis portion, so you're gonna have to wait for me to explain more of why I love them, but just know, justice, fantastic. I could gush for days and days and days and days about the cast of this movie and all of the incredible performances. But the last one I'm going to mention, at least in this section, is Kadeem Hardison as Julius Jones. When we first meet Julius, he's kind of this loudmouth who is always getting into trouble and who always owes money to the wrong people. He's so lovable, even when he's being absolutely foul and he's like speaking down to women and like swearing like a friggin' sailor. There's something about him that is just so charismatic and funny that I absolutely loved him every time he was on screen. I was rolling on the floor 90% of this movie because of Kadeem Hardison. He also had a lot of incredible physical acting. The physicality and the physical comedy he brought was so on point. It was so good. I loved him. As far as the pacing of this movie went, it was pretty solid. There is one moment in about halfway through the film that kind of slows it down a little bit, and I started to get a little annoyed. It was just this bit that was going on for too long, which I will talk more about in my analysis section. But besides that one scene, this movie pops off. It begins with a punch to the face. It jumps right in. We get like 18 corpses at the start of this movie. I'm here for it. We love good, bloody, cold opens. I love it. Then it introduces us to all of the main characters. It gets going right on the action. We know immediately what Max's goals are. We know immediately what he's planning to do to get to them. And then the rest of the movie is just obstacles getting in his way of getting that. I will also mention that a little bit towards the end, the pacing slows down, not in a negative way, but in a way that lets the audience kind of sink in and really try to process what's going on. And it's like this creeping dread where we're like, oh no, I know what's coming, oh no. So it slows down enough to allow us to sit in our dread and our fear and our not knowing what's going to happen next. It's so good. Vampyre in Brooklyn is rated R. There is a ton of foul language, so if you are very sensitive to language, don't watch it. There's also some sexuality. It's technically off screen. It's very loud, but Vampyre in Brooklyn is a lavish and frightening exploration into what it means to be part of a culture and to struggle with these feelings and ideas that you can't understand. I absolutely love this movie, and I am giving it a rating of 5 out of 5. I really like this movie, so please ignore the critics, ignore Rotten Tomatoes, ignore Metacritic, ignore IMDb rating. Listen to me! I am the Vampire Girl! I know what's best! Please check out Vampyre in Brooklyn, at least give it a chance. You can find Vampyre in Brooklyn here. Please check it out. I promise it is worth it. At least watch it once, because it is a good time. For Black History Month, I am shouting out creators that some of my audience may be unfamiliar with, that I think you guys should definitely follow, check out, show the love to, etc., etc. This week, that creator is Zena, also known as the Real Queen of Horror here on YouTube. She is a writer and a podcaster with Bloody Disgusting. You can find her on Twitter at LovelyZena, or on the Bloody Disgusting podcast, which is available on Spotify and I believe on iTunes, also on Bloody Disgusting's app, which, along with Shudder, if you are a horror fan, download the Bloody Disgusting app. It's your one-stop shop for all news horror-related. They have reviews, opinion pieces, latest releases. They have dozens of podcasts for every flavor of listener. Check out the Bloody Disgusting app. They're not sponsoring me, but hey, Bloody Disgusting, if you want to sponsor me, or if you want me to write for you, hi. But especially, go check out Zena. I absolutely love her YouTube channel. I love her on the podcast. I love Zena. She is so awesome. So go check her out and show her some love. Okay, spoiler-free people, we are venturing into the cave of spoilers. So if you don't want any more knowledge about what happens in the film, if you want to go watch it, Go watch it, then come back. We will leave a line for you to follow us into the cave. The cave was that way, and that was, you know what? Improv was never my strong suit. So much of this movie is made incredible by Eddie Murphy's portrayal of Maximilian. I grew up with Eddie Murphy, the voice actor, Eddie Murphy, the comedy films, The Haunted Mansion, The Nutty Professor. That's the Eddie Murphy I grew up with. So when I saw Eddie Murphy in a horror film, I was so not worried, but I was like, okay, this is gonna be an Eddie Murphy movie that has vampires in it. No. I wouldn't even say that this is a Wes Craven movie with Eddie Murphy in it. The blending of their two styles works together in this film so well, and that really comes out in Max's character. The first time we meet Max, in human form at least, because, you know, he's a giant wolf in the opening, fantastic. The first time we meet him in his human form, it's when Julius is getting hassled by these two Italian mafia dudes, Anthony and Tony. They're hilarious. Love them. Max shows up and interrupts their hassling, and Tony shoots him, and he goes down. Of course, that doesn't work because he's a vampire, so he just gets back up Max Shrek style. Max's first few pieces of dialogue are all about being a connoisseur of death, how he finds the different ways that people have tried to kill him so fascinating, how he's almost amused by what these guys are doing and like their fear. It's so great. And then he just like reaches in and rips a dude's heart out. Great effect, great acting. The man who played Tony does a great death fall. So good. And Julius, of course, runs away, and Max catches up with him. And he basically turns Julius into his Renfield type character. And he feeds Julius some of his blood, and Julius like freezes. Max has this line where he talks about how painful it is, and he says that pain is an underrated experience, but it's like one of the things that he specializes in. Some of his dialogue is just so good. It's so good. A lot of Kadeem Hardison's physicality and physical comedy moments come from his now being Max's ghoul. There is some fun body horror, I guess you would call it body horror, but he starts zombifying almost, and he starts losing bits of himself, except for his bits, which, you know, he's very grateful for. And the makeup effects for Julius's Renfielding are fantastic. They look so good and so real and so gross. Fantastic makeup effects. Angela Bassett plays our leading lady, Rita Better. She and her partner, Justice, are called in to investigate this giant cargo ship that has crashed into the port. The police chief is a little nerviosa around Rita because her mother had been institutionalized, and Rita herself has these weird quirks. She has frequent nightmares, and she has visions. Angela Bassett plays Rita's vulnerable moments incredibly well, especially juxtaposed with her moments of strength and stubbornness. Rita is very stubborn. I feel like it's the New Yorker in her. Max is out looking for her with Julius's help, and Max tells Julius that Angela must come to him willingly. He can't technically force her. I'm not gonna say he can't force her, because boy does he try, but he can't technically force her to choose him. Now, in Blackula, this was really romantic, and Mama Wale was very sweet with Tina. Max's method, on the other hand, is to literally take everything she has and give her everything she needs. Which, yikes. With Max in town, Rita's visions seem to be getting worse. She is starting to have them even when she's awake now. Justice is really worried about her, and she's worried that she's descending into the same path that her mother fell down. Justice, I love him. He is one of the best boyfriends I have ever seen in cinema. Justice is baby. Just like Keanu Reeves' Jonathan is baby. Justice is baby. Johnny and Justice, babies. Justice is very, very attentive to Rita. He's very patient with her and he's very understanding with her. But he delves into the realm of overprotective sometimes, which is really annoying to Rita because she is trying so hard throughout this film to prove that she is capable, she does not need help, she is not her mother, she is an independent woman who don't need no man. This in turn frustrates Justice, who's like, I'm just trying to help, and she's like, you're not helping, you're talking over me, and he's like, oh, she's like, yeah, he's like, my bad, she's like, yeah, you're bad. I just want them to be together. Max also sees that Rita and Justice are incredibly close, on the verge of love. Like, they just have to say the words, but they can't because they're both stubborn. Max sees their relationship and is like, that's my girl, you can't do that, I need her. So he tries to drive a wedge in between them using Rita's roommate, Nikki. If I had a roommate like Nikki, and I've known people who have had roommates like Nikki. Now this ties back into the sexuality I mentioned before. Max shows up to Rita's apartment just after Justice leaves and Nikki follows Justice out and is like hitting on him, and Rita has gone to bed, so Max brings Nikki back into the apartment. And Rita hears them because they are so loud. They are so loud. And she thinks that it is Justice in the room with Nikki. And so she gets really, really upset because, you know, Nikki steals all of her other things, so why not her man? This, however, is just a ploy from Max, and then he ends up eating Nikki, and, you know, she's pretty much out of the movie. But this successfully drives a wedge between Rita and Justice, which Max continues to press for the rest of the movie. And he's always bringing up, oh yeah, like you're the guy that Nikki was talking about. Yeah, she said that you were great and that you really gave her a good time. And Rita gets upset even more and she's like, men. And I was like, yeah, girl, same. So by stripping away Nikki and Justice, Max has really taken away Rita's safety net. He's taken away everyone that she can fall back on and that have been supporting her. As interesting a roommate as Nikki was, she was still there to support Rita, and now she's gone, and Rita is pretty much left alone. Something else in this movie that I liked that a lot of people probably didn't and may not still is Max's narration. He narrates the opening of the movie, and he gives us the background on where he comes from and how the vampires in this movie kind of came to be. How they all began in Egypt, and then things happened, and half of them went to Europe, and then half of them traveled down through Africa and into the Caribbean and into basically the Bermuda Triangle. Now, Max has a couple of moments of narration throughout the film, but it never took me out of the moment. In fact, it helped me to understand and to fear his character more because we see Max's internal thoughts and we know just how dangerous he is. He's sly, he's cunning, he's patient. He knows how to get Rita to agree to be with him. And we as the audience know how he's planning to do that, and we are just, all we can do is wait for him to enact his plans. This movie is littered with callbacks to Dracula. I don't know if these were Eddie Murphy's doing, if this was Craven's doing, if this was just something that they wanted to do together. There are so many callbacks. First of all, the movie opens with a giant ship crashing into the harbor of the main city, and this ship was what was carrying our vampire. Of course, chapter 7 of Dracula is my favorite. One of them, all of the chapters are my favorite, but that specific chapter with the Demeter, when it crashes and Dracula jumps off the boat, that is exactly what Max does. Great way to open the movie. It really just punched us in the face to begin with. Another great moment is Max appears out of the mist a couple of times. That's very Dracula. Max turning Julius into this crazy bug-eating follower. It's very Dracula. Max becoming a wolf is a great callback. It also has a very similar theme of what is morally right. Is it morally right for these men to decide the fate of the woman, or for the woman to decide her own fate? Is it morally right for the vampire to feed because that is his nature? Max brings these points up. Our old wizened vampire hunter brings these up. Part of us wants Rita to be with Max because we see what Max does for Rita and what he's willing to do. We know that he would take care of her, and we see the struggles that Rita is having and the way that Max could alleviate those struggles. However, he's still a killer, and when it starts to appear that things aren't going his way, he gets pushy, he gets aggressive, he starts killing other people, or trying to anyway. There's part of us that sympathize with Rita wanting to be with Max because Max represents this freedom and this world that Rita has always been a part of but has never allowed herself to fully immerse herself into. As Max says, she is surrounded by people who don't care about her, who don't listen to her, who call her crazy behind her back, who don't take her seriously. And there is Max, the answer to all of her problems, and he is offering her this freedom. All she has to do is join him and essentially become a killer. At the same time, we see the relationship that Rita has with Justice, and we want them to be together because we see how much they care for each other. And at the same time, Justice doesn't always listen to Rita, and he isn't always there for her. But we see that he wants to be, and we see that he's doing his best. He just doesn't know, or doesn't know how. And then we have the character of Dr. Zeko. Now, Dr. Zeko is our older man who knows everything about everything, and who it's his job. He is the vampire hunter. And we find out that Dr. Zeko is responsible for the death of a lot of vampires in Max's home country, including the vampire who is Rita's father. Now, Dr. Zeko himself says that Rita's mother was studying the vampire, and she went with him to this country where the vampires were. It's never specified. They just say that it's in the Bermuda Triangle. So they go there, and Dr. Zeko kills the vampires, and then he says that he was in love with Rita's mother, but she fell prey to one of the vampires. She fell in love with him. But Dr. Zeko doesn't see it that way because he was also in love with her, and he sees this as her being seduced away by the devil, basically. That said, it brings into question whether we should be rooting for Dr. Zeko or not. We'll see a lot more of this moral ambiguity and this question of freedom and free will as we move into movies, especially in March. I've got a couple lined up that are really, really good about this. So for now, we'll table this discussion on things I am not qualified to talk about. So let's move on. Vampires are also inherently sexual beings, and with that sexuality comes the idea of consent. Now, the thing about Max is he says that he has to wait for Rita to accept him wholeheartedly. She has to come to him. However, he manipulates the world around her into him being her only option, thereby removing essentially her consent. At the same time, Justice and Dr. Zeko are not entirely giving Rita the chance to make the choice herself. Now, in the end, she does make the choice herself. She feels this draw to Max, but she realizes the consequences of this and that it's not something that she actually wants. She loves justice, she loves her faith, and she doesn't want to kill people just so she can have a snack. Max. The last thing that I will talk about in this analysis, because I want you guys to go see this movie. I don't want to talk it to death. It's just so good. So I want you guys to go see it. The last thing I'll talk about is my main problem with the movie, and it is a singular scene. Now, this scene has a lot of great moments to it. The lead up to it, I adore. So, what is it? Rita freaks out and she goes to seek comfort at her local church. And the pastor of her church is Pastor Polly. Now, Max is keeping an eye on Rita, and he sees that she's going to the church, and he's like, of course, the one place I can't follow her, of course. Julius mentions how his mama always said that the way to get a girl is to go to church, and Max responds with, there are more interesting ways to get to a woman, through her faith or through her fear. And that's not the exact quote. His is much better. It's put more eloquently. I really, really like that idea. So Max finds the pastor. He is getting drunk outside the church. And he attacks Pastor Polly and he kills him. And then he assumes his form. That's an interesting thing about Max's power. He can become people that he feeds on, which is used to great comedic effect later, and slightly less great comedic effect here. Rita approaches Pastor Polly, who we as the audience know is actually Max, and she starts telling him about these nightmares she's been having and how she feels like she's going crazy. And Pastor Polly, of course, Max gets ushered towards the church, is like, hey, come on, it's time for the sermon, Pastor Polly, we need you to serve us. And Max goes barely through the doorway of the church and starts smoking. And he's like, well, let's have the sermon on the lawn. So he gets everybody, the whole congregation outside the church, and he actually gives a really interesting speech about duality and how good and evil have to exist with each other. The scene is interesting and it has a lot of great lines, but it goes on for so long. And it'll go on for a little too long, and then it'll have a great moment, and then it'll go on a little too long, and then it has a really forced moment. It's not enough to make me not like this movie, but it is enough to make me go, okay, it's this scene. Okay, and we're moving on. So just be aware of that. It felt a little long to me. Somebody else may love it, and that's totally their prerogative. I'm not here to judge anybody. Overall, I absolutely loved Vampyre in Brooklyn. Like I said, I don't want to go beat by beat with this movie because I want you guys to go and watch it for yourselves. It is a roaring good time. It absolutely digs into this tone that it has decided for itself and settles in and just bathes in the lavish and bloody glee of this world. The writing, the acting, the directing, the costume design of this movie, the effects, just the overall story, and the characters are all so enjoyable. I absolutely love it. Eddie Murphy is fantastic in this film. Angela Bassett is good in everything that she's in, so why are we surprised here? Alan Payne and Kadeem Hardison are also huge standouts. There are fantastic side characters throughout the movie. All of them are enjoyable. Oh, I forgot. There is also some animal death in this movie, so if you're sensitive to cats and dogs biting the dust, that's also you may not want to check that out. But this movie is still really funny. Eddie Murphy is a fantastically talented actor and comedian, so please definitely go check out Vampyre in Brooklyn. I loved it, and I hope you love it as well. Thank you guys so much for watching and for hanging out with me this week. Go check out Vampyre in Brooklyn. You are going to have a good time, I promise you. Actually, I'm not going to promise you because I'm not taking responsibility for anybody who watches it and doesn't like it. Remember that next week, there is no review. There is our book club live stream. We are going to be talking about My Soul to Keep by Tananarive Due. It's such a good book so far. I have loved reading it. I'm not done with it yet. I should be done with it by the time of the live stream. So make sure you get yourself a copy. There is still time. Get it, read it, and we'll talk about it next Saturday. Make sure you're following me on social media so you know exactly what time of day that is happening. Follow, like, comment, subscribe. Also, I have a special treat for you, my YouTube friends and family. We are almost at 50 subscribers. By the time this video goes up, I'm hoping we will be there. Unlikely, but I can hope. Since we are so close to 50 subscribers, I really am itching to hit 100. So, as an incentive to share these videos and get this channel to 100 subscribers, I am going to do a giveaway. As soon as we hit 100, I am going to be picking a random subscriber and sending them a goodie bag of vampire-related goodness. So let's get this channel to 100 subscribers. As soon as we do, I will pick a subscriber, send them a gift bag. It'll be a whole deal. It'll be fun. Maybe we'll do a live stream to celebrate. I don't know. I'm close. I can feel it. I'm so close. I want it. Make sure you're sharing these videos if you have friends that you know, like actors that I talk about, or directors that I mention, or genres of film. Introduce them to this channel, because this year, vampires are for everyone, and I'm bound, set, and determined to prove it! Thank you guys again so much for watching and for hanging out with me this week, and I will see you next time. Bye guys!